Now, Seth, we're live, man. How are you this week?
I'm doing wonderful. It's been a busy week, but I'm doing good. I can't complain. It's January in South Dakota, and it has been 50 to 60 degrees every week or every day, and that is beyond absurd in South Dakota. So I can't complain. When you can walk out
Yeah,
in jeans and a shirt,
yeah. I was just about to
can't
say,
whine.
man, we're recording this beginning of January, and it feels like everybody came back from some holidays, like hitting the ground full speed ahead. It was like we had a break.
Yeah.
2026 is here. Let's go. And I feel the same way. This week has been hectic. It's been good. It's just been like, all right, everybody's back to normal again. Here we go.
Yeah. Back to the grind, back to the
Yeah,
normal
that's right.
life,
But
I
hey,
guess.
you're right. The weather has been incredible. I'm in Nashville, and Nashville weather, I've been wearing shorts and a
Okay.
t-shirt a lot of the days the past few weeks. I'm like, dude, if this is what winter can be like, I'll take it. I'm sure it gets way worse in South Dakota during this time of year normally.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's normally cold. It's normally below zero for just days and days. We usually really don't get a lot
Yeah.
of snow though till about March. It's when it hits spring and you've had enough of the cabin fever and then
Yeah, a
winter's
little
just
bit
like,
more
nah,
when
a
we
little
switch
more
over.
fun. Hold on. You can't come outside
Well,
quite yet.
man, so you're born and raised in South Dakota then? Born and raised.
Yep.
Man, that's
Born and raised.
awesome.
Yep. Black
I was
Hills,
curious.
South
I was
Dakota.
I
Yep.
was looking at because you've written more than one book. When I first got introduced to you, it was about a specific book, but I was looking at some of your writings, and I love how you describe it as dark fiction and how it kind of comes from your professional experience of working in certain. So I just want you to tell your story, just for those that don't know you, Seth, just kind of your progression as you've grown up and how it's led into your style of writing that you do now.
Yeah, no problem. I say dark fiction just because it kind of incorporates everything. Horror, genre, thriller, suspense, kind of all of that. And then, yes, I do call myself a Black Hills author just because I do live in the Black Hills, South Dakota. And that combined with my work experience, yep, in the mental health field, I combine all of that into my writing, try to put in parts of myself and people I've known with and the field all into my stories. And yes, I have 4 novels currently, a
I
fifth
saw
one
that you have an
in the
upcoming
works,
one that you've
hopefully
got
here
posted.
soon in the next
Yeah.
year. Yeah, I do. But my writing career, everything really started when I was young and I'd read Goosebumps, for those who
Some of
remember
my favorite.
Goosebumps. Great books, it's kind of the, closest you could get to horror at a very young age. And so I'd read those obsessively. And I remember actually writing down like titles of books I would write that were kind of similar. I mean, I didn't get very far, but because I was young. Then I really didn't get into actually trying to write until about high school. My first actual short novel I ever wrote was my senior year of high school. And it was called The Chronicles of Clark. I looked at it many, many, many years later and I was looking at it going, well, it was a good start. It was a good beginning. Now that I have a little more experience in the field, it's like, okay, well, we're not going to publish this story anytime soon. Needs about 3 rewrites, but it was still fun and good. I did take a little bit of break with my writing when I got into college, and then kind of worked on my getting into my career field. So it wasn't until about 10 years ago that I really started taking writing seriously and was actually looking at, I'd like to publish a book. That'd be an ultimate goal of mine. And now I have 4. So now my goal is, well, let's have 10. And I gotta keep taking the goals and keep
Yeah.
achieving more and more.
Man, that
So,
that
yeah,
that's awesome. I'm
a
always
quick little
curious just the progression. It's funny you mentioned Goosebumps because I always admittedly, part of my journey into really enjoying books and just reading and getting lost in books. I didn't read a lot when I was younger, but the Goosebumps series was I think I owned all the books. My parents got me that for like
yeah.
birthday or Christmas. So I had all the Goosebump books and I love
Mhm.
those.
I still have them. I was cleaning my mom's, garage I think it was earlier this summer, and she kept all the books I had as a kid. I didn't read as much when I was young either, but
Yeah.
I read more now. Once you get old enough, you go to Stephen King and Dean Koontz and all that
Yeah.
stuff in high school and
Yeah. Yeah, no,
gotta
for sure.
graduate.
Yeah, and I started reading some Stephen King books just a few years ago, just because 'cause they're so long. I love the movies, and then I was like, "Man, I need
Yeah.
to read some of the books," and the books are awesome too, so that's awesome.
And great authors in that
Yeah.
genre right now. It was like when I don't know about you, but when I was little, or I shouldn't say little, but more in that high school, middle school age, it felt like Stephen King was the only
Yeah.
author kind of in that genre, and Dean Koontz, and there weren't a lot, and now
Ones.
there's just tons, plethora of authors. I barely read Stephen King now because there's
Yeah,
just
yeah,
so many other authors. Jennifer McMahon is one of my
yeah.
best. I
So it
always
sounds like
recommend her.
you grew up enjoying reading, enjoying writing. Where did you get that from? Did your parents, were they big advocates of reading? Like your friends? Like where did that interest come from so early?
My mom was supportive of anything I did. I wouldn't I don't know because no one in my family read a lot or wrote a lot, to be honest with you. So I think it stemmed from just having a very overactive imagination, just always, I have a brain that I don't know, I've never been diagnosed with ADHD or anything like that, but I'm sure I have something going on in my head. And I found that writing, putting it, pen to paper just cleared my mind. And I just always found it very enjoyable to have the art form basically take care of whatever
Yeah,
emotional stuff's going on in my mind or my
yeah,
soul, just to cleanse it out. There's freedom in writing and freedom in putting it on pen and paper, even if you're not
yeah,
gonna publish anything. I always get a kick out of, people telling me, well, do you ever have writer's block? Do you ever have, I'm like, if I don't have a project going on, I will still write. I might just do some weird game like A is for absolutely can't come up with anything today. I'll just keep writing until I'm bored. And, and then you come up with your writing goal. And sometimes you just have those days where you don't have any specific
yeah.
things, but you just need to do it.
Yeah. Man, I love that. I love that you're so passionate about writing. It's one of those things I think is extremely important. I know a lot of people who are really good at it, and I'm trying to be better at putting thoughts because I we all have these thoughts, like these dreams, these creations,
Mhm.
but
Yeah.
like then there's you who is talented at putting those thoughts pen and paper and creating a novel and a story. And, I was reading a little bit of Immune. I was like, man, this is like a Netflix show. Like, this is awesome. This,
That'd be the goal. Hopefully,
yeah.
let's get that
Well,
out
I
into
mean,
the
I
universe
was like,
and
dude, this is like perfect
get it
timing too.
into.
'Cause I mean, COVID wasn't that long ago. You're talking about immunity versus infected, and like the story, just the
Yeah.
whole like drama you could do with it. I was like, is this a show? And then I'm just now finding the book.
Well, and that was the
Saw
second
that
release right now. The first release was actually December of 2019. So
right
it was a month
before.
before COVID really got going and started. And I don't know, I still don't know if that was good timing or bad timing. Depends who you talk to. Some people say, oh, it was probably great timing. Other
Yeah.
people are like, no, that was horrible. So I take it as bad timing because, I didn't make millions. So no, I'm not in it to make millions, but still, you want to sell a few books. And yeah,
Yeah.
it was not a good time at COVID. But it was interesting because in the story, the immune, like you had mentioned, they're immune based on their blood type, which is A positive, which is my blood type. So I didn't get real creative with that. I just picked mine. But I remember like a few months into COVID and I was at the gym before
Yeah.
like everything really started shutting down. And there was a news article on the TV, they have the bank of TVs. And there was a mentioning they were looking into does your blood type um influence, getting COVID or like your symptoms and any of that. And I was just thinking, oh, that's
Yeah.
kind of creepy. Well, hopefully, because there's a little bit of zombies and immune. So the whole time during COVID, I
Yeah.
was like, well, I hope that part doesn't come true. I'm
Yeah.
not really
It's
interested
funny
in that.
you talk about that, and it's kind of embarrassing to admit, but I've been asked a few times recently, like, what my blood type is, and I don't know what it is. And I think I guess, like, it's pretty normal to know, and, the other day, someone asked me, and I was like, "I actually don't know what my blood type is." That's probably pretty embarrassing to admit, but
Yeah. The only reason I know is because a few places I used to work, we had blood drives. So as staff,
yeah,
you'd have to donate blood, and they give you a
yeah.
card that tells it.
Well,
It's the only
what was
reason
the
I know.
process like? Because, yeah,
But yeah.
there's like so did you change anything up in the second release of the book or just kind of a new marketing and new time to put it out there? Like, what's that process look like?
Well, I wound up long story short, I wound up, changing publishers is what basically happened. So I had 3 books at the time last year from 2 different publishers, and long story short, I wound up getting the rights back to all 3 of them, which was Mid-Glow Immune and, oh, for goodness sakes, The Interim. And then I was trying to find out a new way to publish them. Like, should I get a different publisher? Should I get them through an agent? And then I discovered Ingram Sparks Publishing, which is self-publishing, and they're one of the biggest distributors in the country, and they have that buyback insurance for bookstores. So I was like, oh, well, I need to do that then. And so while I was doing that, I also had Question 17, which I had finished. So I wound up self-publishing all 4 of them like this summer. So that's why they're second editions, because I just had to
Sure.
change publishers. So that was the biggest thing. But I did go through it and review it. I did change, a few sentences here and there. I added a few words, but for the most part,
Yeah.
it stayed the
For those
same.
that don't know, because I admittedly don't know, you mentioned like that I'm learning so much talking to different authors and learning the process of like how you go about publishing a book and how you go about marketing and selling it. You mentioned something that caught my attention, buyback insurance. What does that mean?
Yeah, so basically bookstores, in order to make sure they don't have warehouses just full and full and full of books they don't sell. So basically you have to have this insurance where basically if they say they order my book and they don't sell enough of them at a certain length of time, then they can return the books to the publisher. Basically. So most publishers have that. That's why self-publishers have a lot of hard time getting into bookstores, because they
Gotcha.
don't
That
have
makes
that
sense.
insurance. And that's why. And so I with through Ingram Sparks, because they're a distributor. So basically what you're doing when you're publishing through them is you're becoming the
Gotcha.
publisher, basically. And so you go through that process that a normal publisher would do. But yeah, but no,
Yeah.
you need that insurance in order to
Cool.
get
Yeah.
into
I've seen a
bookstores.
lot of like,
Which makes sense. It keeps bookstores to save money. You don't want a
yeah,
warehouse
yeah.
full of
And
books
I'm
you can't
I'm
sell.
sure when you're a
So it makes
big,
sense.
huge bookstore, that could pile up, be a problem, and then you got new books coming out, and you're just like, okay, what
Yeah.
do I do with these books? You know, in an ideal world, they all sell and are moved, and everybody's happy. But I could see where that gets
Right.
a little convoluted and logistics and such.
Yeah, and my first book sorry. Yeah, no, my first book, The Interim, didn't have that, it was through a different publisher, and so I wound that's why I wound up getting the rights back to
Yeah,
that one, so I could do that. Same with The Mutant and Midglow. Well, Mutant and Midglow, for the first publisher, they did have those options, but the publisher and us just had some disagreements, a few other about some stuff, and we just
yeah,
wound up going to separate ways, so yeah. So if people ask if I published 4 books in 1 summer, no. They were 4 books made over 10 years and just were republished in the
yeah,
same time. I just like to clarify that, so people don't think I'm some great genius who wrote 4 books, or either that or made 4
yeah.
lousy books and just published
Well,
them right away. It's like, no,
I was
took
gonna say,
about
from my
10 years for all
perspective, it's
4.
awesome. I'm like, man, Seth's pumping out the books. Yeah. Well, talk a little bit about just your process of writing, Seth. Like from idea to putting. You were talking about like it seems like you always have a project you're working on, and obviously you're driven and you want to do more and more and more. How do you? I don't know. Where did the ideas come from? How do you go about like? Are you an early morning writer? Do you spend full-time hours doing this most days? Like, just what's your process from start to finish to get a book put together?
Yeah, I write in the morning. I'm an early morning person. I have this rule. I don't usually typically do anything after 3 in the afternoon because my imagination is shot. It's gone by then. So it's first thing in the morning. Depends on what's going on because I do have a full-time job and a second job as well. So a lot of times it's just about how much I can get done in the morning, whether it be I write 500 words, 1,000 words, 2,000 words, or maybe I'm just editing. Maybe it's for an hour, 2 hours. It just depends on what's going on in my life. And then during the weekends, I get a little more time to do that. But yeah, for ideas, honestly, a lot of times I'm not a plotter. For those who don't know, understand what that means is like you think about your story ahead of time and you can write it out chapter by chapter, scene by scene. I can't do that. It always starts with a scene for me. And so I'll write out the scene. And if the scene really sticks with me, then I find when I am done with my session and I'm walking or I'm at work, whatever happens next will just come to my head. And then I will write that the next day. And I just keep going and doing that over and over until eventually a story takes shape, or it's nothing and I lose sight of it
Yeah.
and I'm like, all right, throw that away. But yeah. And so with each new day, hopefully something comes and that comes together. Yeah. So what happens next is always when I'm not writing. It just comes to my mind later
Gotcha.
on. So for me, yeah, and so usually what happens is after the first draft, I will review it. I usually have a three. I'll usually edit it 3 times. I'll go through a manuscript 3 times before I send it to my editor. I don't go through more than three, just because for me, I stop seeing my words, if that makes sense. Like I don't see the issues. I don't really, because you can also go
Yeah, I was about to
overboard. You
say
can
you
do
could
too
change it
much
change it
editing.
up too much.
Yeah. you can drive yourself crazy. So I'm always like, do it 3 times, then give it to someone else so they can do that. And then as far as publishing goes, so far I've started off self-publishing, but I've tried to do traditional, trying to get an agent. I did do that with Immune a few times, but no bites. And so hopefully with my 5th book, I'm gonna try the traditional route as well. But yes, I do have an editor, which is very needed. I always recommend a professional editor for people. You want someone to look at it, if at least not professional editor, get other eyes to look because you need fresh perspective. But it usually takes about a few months to write a book, generally. I do short stories here and there. I'm trying to eventually compile enough short stories where I can
Yeah.
put it in a book,
Yeah.
put it in a collection. But yeah, idea wise, it can come from anything: a movie, reading a book, reading a news article, sometimes just seeing something out in the world. And yeah, I always have plenty of ideas. It's whether if they stick after I write the
Yeah.
first scene. That's
Well,
always
that's
the
cool.
thing.
You're the first person I've talked to that explains the process that way. Like just coming up with a quick scene. Let's start there, and then let's see if a story flows from that. I've talked to a lot of people where they're like, "Yeah, I basically have the whole story. I just have to figure out how to organize it, and I've got the ending, I've got the beginning. I'll fill out the middle." But you start with like one specific scene, some specific characters, and you're like, "Okay, let's see where this goes," which is really cool. You can use your imagination
Yeah.
so many ways when you do that, I would expect.
Yeah. But yeah, from what I've been told, there's plotters and then pantsers is what they're called. So the plotter is the person who's able to just they see it all and they can organize it and do everything before they start writing. Then the pantser is the person who just writes on the seat of the pants. They just go and go and go. And so I don't do that. However, I will take notes a lot of times. Like if I come up with a few characters' names, I'm like, all right, I don't want to forget that. So I'll write it down. Or if I come up with something really important, I'll be like, all right, you better write that
Yeah.
down so I don't forget.
Yeah, yeah,
So I will take note, which eventually towards the end of the novel will look like probably a nice detailed plan that someone came up with beforehand, but yeah,
yeah.
so I
I
do
mean,
as
I'm
I go
sitting here, like,
along.
correlate things. I'm like, it's almost like a freestyle rapper, like, give you an idea and then just let you go to work and
Mhm.
see what you come out with. Sometimes it's really good, sometimes
Yep.
it may not be good. You just gotta you'll select the best one. So I just think that's super cool that that you can create a whole book off of a single scene. It's just really cool that you were able to do that.
Yeah, and that's why revisions are important. I always tell people, like, there's a reason I won't need to go through it 3 times, it's just because, yeah, so usually I take a break in between each session of editing, usually like a month, 3 weeks to a month, because, yeah, there's times where you can go through it and go,
Yeah,
"What the heck was I writing?" Like, "What?" That probably seemed like a great
yeah.
idea at the time, but it's like, "Let's delete that, let's
It's
get rid
funny
of
how
that. What the
time
heck was
can,
I doing?"
change your perspective and change the way you think on even the simplest things, and I'm assuming, yeah,
Yep.
when you have a whole book
Oh, yeah.
to look through, I can see where 2 or 3 times that really could sharpen things up and tighten some things that maybe you weren't thinking about a few weeks prior.
Right, and like I said, I picked it up, 10 years, ago, and so since it'd been a long time since I really tried to write and edit and everything, I had to relearn so much too. That's amazing thing too, which is good. It was good for me to relearn, but yeah, reviewing it myself,
Yeah.
it's just
With
very
your
important to me because yeah, I need to see how I've evolved
Yeah.
as an author too when I do it.
With your passion for writing, is your long-term goal to be able to be a full-time author? Like, to come out with a book or a series to where then you can like, "Hey, I've got a contract to do 2 or 3 more of these," or, is that kind of your I know
Yep.
you seem passionate about what you decided to do professionally just based off what you do. A lot of people that go that route, there's some passion and feeling of helping others, when you do that. Very, I don't know, fulfilling in a way too. But your passion is definitely writing. So is that a path you would like to get to at some point?
But yeah, I would love to go
Yeah.
be full time for sure. Absolutely. The only thing really stopping me right now is just, yeah, financially, editing costs a lot of money and it takes time. If I had a couple $100,000 right now, I'd be probably like
Buy
Stephen King. I'd
yourself
have
some
like five,
time
six
too.
books every
Yeah.
year. I'd be pumping them out. But
Yeah.
yeah, but no, that is the ultimate goal. I mean, I still would write for fun. It's still a joy of
Yeah.
mine. But yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
That's
No,
the
I love
ultimate
that, I
goal.
love that. And
Yeah.
again, I talk to so many people, some people, they're like, "Hey, I love what I do, and this is just kind of a, hobby, it's great for me." Others are like, are passionate about it. And I've talked to some that are full-time authors now, and they're like, "Dude, this is awesome." Like, I wake up and I write. My schedule's around my books,
Yeah,
and then there's some different challenges with that, but I don't know, when you've got the passion, like I can see that you have, it just seems inevitable, like, hey, that's where you wanna get to, is to get that one book out there that really leads to where you can do this as a
yep,
full-time, thing. That'd be so cool, and now that we've met, I'm rooting for it. I'll be like, "Seth made it, full-time author, baby."
right? Hopefully. Yeah. I mean, I do love my
Yeah,
field I'm in, and I do love my job too, and it's very rewarding. It is very, inspiring to help youth, so that's what I work with is that age
yeah,
group, 10 to 19. A lot of education, a lot of working with the mental health. It's good. I like it. And it's given me a lot of inspiration and a lot of ability to put some of this that secondary trauma we don't talk about a lot with people in the helping field, putting that in my stories along with, just topics like sobriety and trauma and triggers and just all sorts of things. I put into my stories as well. So yeah, that's helpful as well because it's a stressful field, just like any field, firefighter, police officer. When you're in the helping field, there's always some
yeah,
secondary trauma you got to deal with. Perspective of life changes, and you got to deal with that in a healthy way. And writing,
yeah.
I feel,
Man, that
helps
makes
with
a lot
that.
of sense, and not that it's exact, but my wife was an adaptive PE teacher, and, so I was around, like, some of her students and some different challenges that they had, but, like, the passion that she has for those kids, when you're around and you're helping, you just become part of their lives, and you have such a big impact. Yeah, people don't realize just like how important you are to them. So I just anytime someone's doing something like that, I find that just I don't know, man. It's so important and just needed out there. So I think it's awesome that you do that, and you kind of have your out with writing. You can kind of tune some things out and kind of escape from it a little bit too when needed. So again, just getting to know you and figuring out that correlation, it's really cool that you're able to do that. Well, man, how do you've got a future project already in the works? How many I don't know, how many stories do you typically work on at once? 2 or 3, 7 or 8?
I'm usually 2 or 3. I'm working
Yeah.
on 3 right
Is that
now.
hard to do
I
to
have 3
keep up
projects.
with
One that's
everything,
in
like
editing.
details and different stories and different
Yeah, I usually have I'm pretty okay with it. So, and I try to separate it as much as possible. Like one is with my editor right now. Another one's in the rough draft phase. I'm still like on the third edit. I think I'm on the third review right now. And then the other one's in a first draft. So basically, I get my chunks from my editor. And so I do that. I'll finish her edits. And then when I'm done with that, I'll go back to the revision of this book and I'll get to a certain point and then I'll work on this. And yeah, so
they're
I have
kinda
little time
staggered for
frames
where
that
you're
I
at
set
with
for
each
each.
story then.
Yeah.
Okay,
Mhm.
because I have a hard
Yeah.
time reading, like,
But no,
just
there a lot
reading
going on.
2 books at the same time, like, trying to balance out. I try to read, like
Yeah, see, I can't read 2 books at once. I've tried that. I can maybe like read one and
yeah,
then listen to an audible book. I can do that, but to read 2 at the same time, I was never
yeah,
good at that. I tried, but I get confused really quick. That's why I don't get into mystery novels
yeah,
too often, like detective books, because I
yeah,
get confused way too quick. I don't pick up those things where it's like, "Oh, I remember that was in chapter 5. That person was
yeah.
da 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 da." It's like, I don't, yeah.
With
But
you
I
with
don't
you
remember.
working and writing a lot of your time, and obviously you have family too or other responsibilities, do you still find time to read a lot of books, or does it get more challenging as progress in your writing career?
It gets a little challenging with all of my stuff going on. So typically my reading is geared towards the evenings. I usually always at minimum try to read half an hour before I go to bed, just to help calm me down and soothe things, get my brain to quiet a little bit. So yeah, it can be challenging to find time to read for sure, but I always force it. I'm like, no, you got to read at least a half an hour every night at minimum. Yeah. So sometimes I get now, here's the thing I've learned, and I don't know if my wife likes it or not, but when I watch football, I've managed to be able to read it during commercial breaks. And then also I've tuned it to my ears to where I actually can know when the next play is about to happen. So I'll read in between the plays when the commentator's just talking. And then I'll look up, see the next play, and then I look down and I'll keep reading. And then I look up and she just looks at me like, how do you do like
Yeah,
can you focus on the book when your game's going
man,
on? I'm like, I
so
don't know, I just do. So I started doing that. I think partly just because I felt guilty watching football when in the back of my mind I'm going, you need to be reading, Seth. Come on. Come on. Cause I don't know about other authors what they've told you about, but I kind of think of my imagination and my creativity as your body. I compare it to your body where you need exercise and nutrition to stay healthy. And with your imagination, reading and writing is exercise and nutrition. So those are two things that go hand in hand when you're an author. And so yeah, I'm always like, you need to
Yeah.
read. You watching
Yeah.
a football game. You
No,
need to read.
Seth, it's so funny you say that because literally like a few weeks ago, I'm a huge football fan, so, like, I read a lot of books in the spring, kind of in the summer, and then when football season
Uh,
kicks in, like, so much goes to the side because that's thankfully, my wife loves
yeah.
sports too, so, like, the fall, we are just all in on sports. But like you, I was like, "Man, I have got to catch up on reading," and I legit started doing it during commercials just like that. Like, I was like, "Cool, commercial, mute, I'm gonna
Uh-huh.
get a few pages in. Cool, watch, do it again." And I was like, "Oh, this is
Yeah.
great. I just need to do this more often during football season." So it's so funny that you say that because I did that
Yeah.
same thing, just like a month ago, I started doing that.
Yeah, ever since I started doing that,
Yeah,
I do it all the time now. It's like,
yeah.
'cause it's just good. Yeah, yeah. Well, I love, yeah, football, and my Steelers are we'll see
Hey,
how they
hey,
do
I know
this
this
week.
podcast will come out, a little bit later, but Sunday night's game versus Baltimore was one of the greatest games of the season for sure. Me and all my friends were texting. I was like, I'm trying to go to bed.
I was
Can't go to bed.
I was stressed. Yeah, I was stressed out during that game. I was
Yeah.
watching it going, "Oh my
Well, it
goodness."
was awesome, man. That was a great
Yeah,
final regular season game. So we'll see what happens from here.
that was a good final game
We'll
for sure.
see. But no,
Yeah,
Seth, I got one more question for you. And it's something I ask every
yeah,
every single person that comes on this podcast, just because everybody's reading different things. But I always ask, what
yeah.
is a book or two that has had a big impact on you personally or professionally? What's one of your favorites? And if people ask you for book recommendations, what's a book or two you like to recommend to other people?
Jeez,
I
there's
know there's a
so many
lot.
books. There's so many. I would say, well, first, okay, so to the question to the ones that inspired me the most, I would say probably
Mm.
I Am Legend. For those who've never read it, you should. It's a must read if you love that genre, whether it be pandemic or vampires, because they're not zombies. Spoiler alert for those who haven't read it. But it's a great story. And I remember just being inspired by it after I read it. And then let's see, I would probably say I think The Shining by Stephen King. I read that one, and that one got me going as well. I actually went and visited the hotel in Estes Park, the Stanley Hotel, once on a vacation. I
How
actually
was
slept
that?
in there, the hotel. It was good. I enjoyed it. It was very
Yeah.
they keep it old fashioned, and it was good. I liked it. As far as, oh gosh, book recommendations. Well, I already mentioned Jennifer McMahon already. She has, let's see, there was like The Night Sister, The Winter People, The Invited. Those were all just great. I can't remember the author, so I apologize to him, but Boys in the Valley, that was a really good one as well. If you're not into fiction, so when I need a break from fiction, I will read stories like about shipwrecks,
Yeah.
survival stories. The Wager is a great book. I don't know for any of those who read it. That was a great story. And I'm trying to remember, there's another one. I can't, oh, I wish I knew what it was called now. But it's about the War of 1812 while that's going on. Two ships wind up both shipwrecking on the same island on separate parts, and they don't know each other. They don't know that happened. And one manages to build huts and take care of each other and survive, and the other one just had no leadership and they all just died. And it was just just a fascinating story of humanity and just how if you have good leadership and good teamwork and interesting because it's the same
Yeah.
island, same resources, same everything. One was managed to survive and the other one just perished. It was just,
Interesting.
oh, so fascinating. I can't remember for the life of me. For those who hear the
Yeah.
podcast, if you look it up,
That sounds
please
sounds
do.
awesome.
I
I'm sure we can figure
I'll
it
think
out.
about it after we're done with the podcast here. No, another one I would actually say too, now that you mentioned it, was Roosevelt's Secret War. I don't know if anyone ever read that book. That was a great one. So that is about the rise of the SOS, yeah, which was the founder of the CIA. So the first, I think it was SOS, I believe it was. But yeah, that history of that organization during World War II. There's a lot of that I put into Immune because Immune conflicted, she becomes director of the organization, the ISC, which is the replacement for the CIA. So there's a lot of that influence into that story. So that book was another
Interesting.
big influence.
Yeah,
Yeah,
those sound
for
good.
sure.
Those sound like ones I definitely will
That's a
be
good book
adding to
too.
my reading
Roosevelt's
list
Secret
because
War.
there's a couple. I don't wanna say it because I can't think of the name off the top of my head. I had to go look at my Goodreads because I read them a few years ago, but they were similar. It was like 1940 something and a shipwreck in 1912. I gotta go look it up, but you got me thinking about a couple that I've read that I really enjoyed,
Yeah.
and these I have not read, so I need to add them to my list because I know I'd enjoy those.
Oh, yeah, the wager was good. Yeah, they're all good. Yeah, I'm gonna have to think.
Yeah,
I'll
yeah,
email you when I figure out the title. I'll email it to you
yeah.
'cause I it was a good book. It really was. But, yeah, I like
Me
that kinda
too.
nautical themes and, exploration, Arctic, and all that stuff. Yeah. And Westerns. When I read nonfiction, I do Westerns a lot too, like, Dodge City, that was a good one,
Yeah.
Tombstone.
Man, I love that. It's cool because as my reading progression has taken place over the last 10 years, I kind of started with just kind of what I was interested in there. And now my horizon has expanded where I read all kinds of different books. And I find so many different genres interesting now for different reasons. And so I don't know, it's just cool. I love sharing with people. I'm like, man, pick up a book you may not think you'd like because you may end up liking it. And then you end up
Yeah,
reading all kinds of similar stories and whatnot. And so I get recommended books all the time, and so I try to like switch it up as much as I can, just to again like expand my knowledge, expand my experiences, and it's man, books are so awesome for that, and it's so cool that you just recommended like two different opposite ends of a spectrum on book recommendations, so I love that.
yeah. I'm usually pretty generous. I give a novel about the first
Yeah, that's a good.
125 pages usually before I put it down. But I'm not one of those people that has to finish a book once you start it. Once I get to page like about 125, give or take, and if I'm not into it, I'm like, all right, we're done. I'll close it and read another book. But it takes a lot for me
Yeah.
to shut one book down.
Well, I just recently figured
And same
figured
with
that out
endings.
for
I'm pretty
myself too about if I'm not interested, it's okay because there's a lot of books out there to read. So if I need to get
it
rid of
is.
one to get to the
Oh, yeah, there's
next,
too many
it's
stories in the
okay.
world. Yeah. And I'm not too picky about endings. I guess I was gonna ask you that because I always like to ask people, are you picky about endings?
Um,
Like how the
well,
story ends?
no, not really. And
That's good.
I'm probably 50-50 on nonfiction and fiction books. So the fiction books that I
Yeah,
do read, they're either recommended to me or they're popular. So, I don't know. The consensus is usually that it was
yeah,
good. I haven't really read too many books where I was like, well, dang, that sucked after it was so good, like, so
yeah.
I haven't experienced that personally, I guess.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. The only thing that ever bugs me is if they kill the main character. I don't like the main character dying at the end. I don't even if I've had people tell me, "Well, what if it's like some satisfying ending where
That's not satisfying to me.
he or she accomplishes some great inner peace or something?" And I'm like, "No, I don't want them dying at the end." That's the only exception would be like if it's a trilogy or some, like
Yeah,
4 or 5 book series, and at the end of the 6th book,
yeah,
maybe they die. Then okay, fine, but yeah, I can't do yeah. If you kill the character at the
yeah.
end, I'm like, "Oh,
You want, like, a
man."
little hope that maybe there'll be another story to it?
Yeah, a little hope, come on. Yeah, they got through all this absurdity for how many pages, and then you're
Yeah,
just gonna kill him at the end? That's yeah. But yeah,
yeah.
so don't kill your
No,
main character.
love that.
Don't do that.
Well, Seth, man, this has been a great conversation. I appreciate you coming on the Books for Guys podcast. And we've got Immune on the Books for Guys website. I need to get your others posted on there as well. So I'll be getting those on there for anyone who's interested in purchasing them. I always put a link so they can go find you and find your books. I'll get your website posted on there as well. And now that we've met, man, I can't wait to see what other books you come out with and just kind of your career progression. Again, now that I know you, I'm gonna be like, "All right, man, so Seth put out 3 books this year. He must be doing this full time now," you know? So, I'll be cheering for you, and I know a lot of people, I think, will enjoy your books because again, I just me reading the summary about it, I was like, "Did I miss a Netflix show on this already?" Like
Yeah, well, that'll be the goal, right? To get
yeah,
a Netflix show. Absolutely. And I always tell people too, go into your local bookstore and ask for them to be
100%.
on your shelf as well. Ask for it. Yep. Recommend it and yeah, get them as
Yep,
bookshelves as much as
100%,
possible. Yeah, for sure.
100%. So, Well, no, well, Seth, I appreciate it, man. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep putting books out there. I can't wait to read them all. And like I said, I can't wait to spotlight them on the Books for Guys website too. So everybody, go follow Seth. I know you've got your Instagram and your social media handles and all that too. So I'll put that so people can go find you. But man, we appreciate it, Seth.
No problem. I really appreciate being on here. And I always tell people if you don't want to pay attention to my books, at least follow me because I do my rabbit Snowball. Our family has a rabbit named Snowball, and I put him on there all the time. So at least you can watch Snowball and get
Yeah,
a
you
laugh.
don't like the
That's you know.
books, you like the snowball.
Yeah, at
I
least like the
love it.
rabbit. It's all right.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate it, Seth.
Thank you. I appreciate it.